I now call the March 5th Finance Committee to order at 6:45. Consideration of claims. Chair would entertain a motion for the approval of claims.
So moved, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Second.
Sorry.
Got to read them
I'm
first.
sorry. I'm sorry. I was having technical difficulties. I'm here. This is Carla.
Okay.
Would you want me to do Your Honor, to make a motion of the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $174,895.10. Manual checks in the amount of $9,121.63. Payroll and liabilities for February 23rd in the amount of $495,277.23 for a total of $679,293.96.
Do I hear a second somewhere?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have any, is there any other additional from the comments from the committee?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Any from you? Do you have any?
I have nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All in favor of first and second on the consideration of claims? Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Motion passes. Call this Finance Committee adjourned.
I now call the March 5th, 2024 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Councilmember Larson, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Councilmember Bailey has agreed to give us the invocation. If you could please rise and remove your hats, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dearest Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings that we are given by you. Thank you for the ability to live here in this beautiful city of Riverton in the state of Wyoming. Please bless us in all that we do here and bless our minds that we can make the best decisions for the city of Riverton and its residents. Please lay out your blessings upon our emergency responders, police, fire, military, that they will all be kept safe as they go about their duties in keeping us safe. We ask you to please help us in all the decisions that we have to make tonight and help us all to travel home safely after we're done. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 All right. Administrative Services Director, Mrs. Harris, if you could please conduct the roll call.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilman Dean Peranto.
Here.
Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here?
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
And Mayor Tim Hancock.
I am here. I declare we have a quorum. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
Councilman Peranto with the motion, Councilwoman Cox with the second. Any discussion, amendments, additions, subtractions, divisions? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Council committee reports and council members roundtable. If we could, let's start with our individuals by phone first. Councilwoman Salisbury, do you have anything to report since our last meeting?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening, and I've not had any other scheduled meetings since the last one.
All right. Well, sounds good. Hope you're well over there. Councilwoman Borders.
Hi, Your Honor. I haven't had any meetings since our last meeting, so I guess that's it.
All right. And then you attended, I think last time you reported on pause. Didn't we have an event coming up? If you could remind me of when that is?
No, we're actually just planning our events for the year. We do have some things coming up, but I don't have any details on those yet.
Okay. Well, I guess keep us posted.
I will.
Thank you. Councilman Larson.
Your Honor, several of us from the city went to the big tent down in Cheyenne, and that's Little America. And we had several meetings there, and the one that sticks out most in my mind was on the Appropriations Committee, and they talked about being able to get your ox out of the mire, which translates, don't ask us for money if you haven't done your uttermost to raise sufficient for your needs. So that was kind of interesting. Second one we attended was on how to budget and look at invoices and make sure the bills are paid correctly, which I have a new interest in. And the last one was we listened to a linebacker from the Broncos, Mecklenburg, and he had a very exciting life, and it was a rather enjoyable discussion. Met him afterwards and talked to him about his life and what he's doing. But that's all I have to report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Councilman Larson. And safe to say, you kind of got bit by the wham bug. You really enjoyed it.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
good opportunity. I enjoyed attending as well. Councilman Bailey.
Thank you. Again, I apologize. I was out of town for the last meeting that we had. The week before that, I did attend the Forest Committee meeting, which again, they're finalizing the projects coming forward this summer that they're going to do. They've got a lot of pavement preservation that they're going to be doing, about $500,000 to $1 million worth of, chip sealing and slurry sealing and all that kind of stuff. And then also going to be redoing Major and College View to a little higher extent than that. So, and then there's, hopefully if, revenues continue at the pace they have been, there might be a little room for another few projects to be stuck in there too as they go. So, and then I did attend the airport board meeting, and again, the airport had the best January in like 20 years or better. So, I mean, our ridership is doing very well. They're moving the midday flights we normally were getting during the week, and now we're starting in April. They're going to be Sunday and Monday. Yeah, that's what it was. So, other than that, doing well.
Thank you. Councilwoman Cox.
The rec board met last night. It was a really quick meeting. Not a lot to discuss as we just approved those. The letters for the approvals went out on February 20th. The big topic of discussion was a memorial bench that they'll be placing up at the high school football field for Brett Watson. We made our first payment on that, so to get that project going. And then Edge meeting will be on the 21st. And other than that, I don't have anything else.
All right. Councilman Peranto.
Your Honor, thank you. A week before last, it's hard to believe it was already that long ago, had the opportunity to go to WHAM as well. And, it's always an interesting event. And I really enjoyed there are two different breakouts that I attended as kind of throughout the day. One of them was employment law for supervisors, and the other was change management. How do you affect change, and then how do you manage all the moving parts when you're trying to make those changes. It was very interesting. I also enjoyed the keynote speaker. It was, he had kind of an interesting life and a lot to say that was really kind of encouraging. And, the legislative update is always interesting because it's kind of like a real-time discussion that happens, kind of all the moving parts, sometimes the unmoving parts like budgets and stuff like that. But the highlights are really just visiting the Capitol and engaging in that process. I really enjoyed the decorum. I like watching. We had an opportunity to sit at the Senate side this time. Last year we went and we hung out on the House side. So it's just interesting. It's similar but different. And it's always just a great learning opportunity and a good networking opportunity. And I really encourage everybody to go if they can. I missed the School District 25 Rec Board meeting last night. I was out of town. And I was also at the airport board meeting with Mr. Bailey, like 3 weeks ago now. It seems like a long time ago. And I also had the opportunity, I've heard from several people in the community about the water, sewer, and trash rates. And I always appreciate the opportunity to have that discussion and to provide some feedback, and also encourage people to come to the budget meetings. I think that a lot of what we do is dictated by the budget, and the making of the budget is really complex. And when we look at the different funds that you have to deal with and how money can be spent from within those funds, it's actually quite complicated. And it's always kind of fun being able to explain that a little bit. And with that, Your Honor, I have nothing else.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Carla. I just wanted to mention that I did go to a meeting last week. It was the Lunch and Learn with the Chamber, and they did a presentation on the Riverton Medical District. And I just wanted to let everyone know that that project is moving. It's been a little slow, but I think we're going to start seeing a lot of progress on that. And it was very interesting hearing all the hoops that they've had to jump through, and it's really nice to know that it is moving forward, and we're going to be seeing some stuff going on out there.
Thank you. I was going to report on that, and I appreciate you mentioning that too, Councilwoman Borders. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, Mr. Butterfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a few items to run through. As you remember, the City Council had the opportunity to designate funds that were received from Wyoming Community Gas. And the council wanted to prioritize improvements in the parks, and whether that be lighting or surveillance, but it was direction to ensure that our parks are more safe. To that end, staff has been working to utilize the $10,000 that were made available by Community Gas. And Brian Eggleston and his team have a proposal for your concurrence, and it specifically relates to adding more surveillance cameras in City Park. And so if it's okay, Your Honor, I'd like to defer to Mr. Eggleston to provide you a little bit more information.
Thank you. Mr. Eggleston.
Your Honor, Council, myself and one of our IT specialists, Adam Wyrick, traveled to City Park a couple of weeks ago to do basically a site analysis where we needed cameras, our blind spots, and some of those little intricacies that affect where camera placement is appropriate, where it's worthwhile and where it wouldn't be worthwhile. Based on that assessment, we've identified 4 locations for new cameras. They don't include the existing systems that are there now, which is fairly limited. We're going to propose that we put up 4, 1 fixed camera, 1 panoramic camera, 2 panoramic cameras, and 1 point tilt zoom camera. The point tilt zoom camera will have basically a radar unit installed on it, where it can track movement in the park and automatically focus on that area, instead of having to be monitored by the dispatch center constantly. But based on this is a first step. It's not going to cover everything in the park, but this is a good starting point to provide good surveillance and good safety measure to that area. We're looking at probably right in the neighborhood of $10,650 to do that project, to get it off the ground.
And then, okay, so you're talking about one that would be detecting movement and then going to that movement. Would it be one that would be 360 and then would just kind of follow?
Correct.
What would that do on days like Day in the Park? Is it just going to completely go nuts?
It'll be busy.
Okay. And then you're talking about 360 ones that would be there that are not automatically zooming in.
No, there's a fixed camera, which really has no zoom function on it. It's just a fixed camera. And then there's 2 panoramic cameras that have kind of a wide angle of vision. Cover generally the area around the west side of the band shell and out towards Federal. And then around the skate park where we have no cameras at all right now. The other camera, the point tilt zoom camera, will be located in a position where it can track quite a bit of the park. It's the radar and the view on it's about 600 feet, and it has night vision. So,
would we be able to have better monitoring of our bathrooms so that we could have more access to those?
Right now, we're basically focused on the park area itself. We looked at actually putting cameras on the east side of that building, and quite frankly, just ran out of funding.
I see. Trying to keep to what had been the amount from Wyoming Community Gas.
Correct.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Will that get the splash?
Yes. And we have a camera on the splash pad currently, and there's also another camera in the system out just west of there for emergency calls and such, and it also gets the band chill.
Thank you.
So we'd be talking about being able to have the other side of the band shell, which right now is
Blind.
not very well monitored. I say the other side, I mean the west side. And then you'd be talking about being able to have a better view of the skate park.
Correct. We'll actually have cameras deployed out on the state park, or the skate park itself.
Which would be a fixed point one.
Correct.
And then just being able to get more of the park itself.
Correct.
Okay. Did you want to have some discussion on that today amongst the council, see if there's concurrence, or see if it's worthwhile to continue?
Your Honor, I think it would be good for us to get your concurrence. You've already designated how you want those funds used, but we just want to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And we want to get them spent before the end of the fiscal year, so now's the time to get moving. And it's nice to have Miss Mia Harris sit next to me, because the number that I provided was lower than the funds that we received. We received 12.5 and not 10,000. So there may be an opportunity to add more surveillance as Brian continues his work on this, if the bathroom area or that east parking lot is of interest to you. But we felt that we would present this to you because I know that was one option that you felt would be valuable with those funds. And staff definitely felt that that would be a good use as well. So if you're okay moving in that direction, we'll go ahead and procure the items and get them installed. Or if you'd rather do something different like the lighting that you had mentioned, we could move in that direction.
Lighting might not be something we could spend before the end of the fiscal year, though.
Your Honor, I couldn't estimate at this time.
Any thoughts from the council?
I like cameras.
I think it's a good
I like
investment.
cameras. I've seen you install cameras, so I know.
I think it's a good investment.
Yep, good idea.
Councilman Borders or Councilwoman Borders or
I agree.
Councilwoman Salisbury?
I think they're a good idea too.
Okay.
I agree.
I do know we're already also seeking grant funds for restrooms that would be over near the skate park and improvements over there near the skate park. We already have plans to try to improve the parking area and get rid of some of the, what do you call them? The
Horseshoe?
Yeah. Well, that's down the road. We're also seeking grant funds for pickleball courts.
Correct.
So we've got a lot of efforts being made towards the park anyway.
That's correct. And obviously, if the pickleball courts come to fruition, what we're building here allows us to expand on that. So we could add additional cameras on that location if it comes to fruition.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we've got concurrence from the council that makes sense to go forward with that, and then we can, with the additional funds, see what else pops up.
Thank you, Your Honor. We appreciate that concurrence, and we'll continue in that direction. A few items just to make as far as quick announcements. There's the Fix Our Road Citizen Committee meeting that will be this upcoming Monday at 11 o'clock. That's here at City Hall in the bullpen area. As a reminder, the Fix Our Road Citizens Committee is a steering committee that helps direct the use of the optional 1% tax. And we encourage residents to attend that meeting and help inform our committee that then helps inform you to prioritize the use of those funds. And you have a very good committee, and again, we always welcome the public to attend that and provide feedback. There will not be a planning commission meeting held this Thursday, so anyone who was planning on attending has the night off. As a reminder, the Evolve, Diversify, and Grow Our Economy application period, or the EDGE application period, is currently open. It opened on March 1st and will end March 31st. The committee will then review the applications and then come forward to you with recommendations. So we encourage any interested individuals that have an idea for economic development to submit an application, and they have until the end of the month for that. Also open right now is the contract for services period. As a reminder, these are funds that you as a council basically allocate from the city's budget to support community entities like Riverton Recreation, like PAWS, like the fire department and others. And that's a competitive application process. And once those are received, there will be an opportunity for those that submitted applications to present to you during a work session. And Mia, is that the April work session?
Yes,
Yeah, that'll be at the April work session. So that's the second Tuesday in April. And Mia has done a wonderful job preparing that round and is working hard on that. I want to communicate some good news. Miss Kathy Klein reported that today her application for the monuments and markers that was talked about at the last meeting was supported. There's still a few more logistical hoops to jump through, but this was a very big step in receiving that approval. And I can't speak highly enough about Miss Klein. She's one of the many people in our community that care and volunteer and get involved. And she doesn't just talk about doing things, she does them. So I think we can all be proud of her and look forward to that monument and marker project moving forward. I also like to report back that the grant application that you approved by resolution last meeting was submitted last week. That'll be for a business plan and feasibility study for a multi-use recreation or sports complex. That'll be an important step forward to working with a lot of interested community members and city staff to see what we can get moving on that. And a lot of credit goes to our community stakeholders who, again, volunteer their time and are very interested in making things better. The last thing I'd like to update you on is a few items from the legislative session, which is coming to a close. Each biennium, there are only a certain amount of days that the legislature is allowed to meet without it being a special session. Last year, the first year of the biennium, the legislature was able to conclude its business 3 days earlier than anticipated. So technically, there's an opportunity for the session to go 3 days longer this year. And it seems that the legislature will need every hour and minute of those additional days. A lot of good work is being done, and we want to thank our local legislators for that. Particularly last week, there was good news for municipalities in that the Senate almost unanimously adopted the direct distribution bill to the tune of $146 million. The governor's budget was $110 million. Appropriations cut that back to $105. And what we saw was an ally in the House that proposed an amendment that brought it to $146 million, and that is equivalent to the amount that was received between the last 2 years as it relates to direct distribution. Direct distribution is used primarily for capital improvement projects. It's used for the contract for services we just referenced, and is allocated by formula from the state to each municipality. That increase was a huge win, and we appreciate our legislators for doing that. Of the many property tax bills that were filed, there are still 8 that are alive and look to be close to being approved on both sides. To give a quick run through, not of all of them, but one relates to an exemption, especially for those that are homesteaders or have owned their home for a certain period of time. Another is an increase to the property tax refund program. There's also a few others that limit the amount that could be increased as far as your assessment goes, and that's capped at 5%. So of the 8, those are a few that I think pertain to our local residents and also to us as a municipality. There's another bill that passed that will impact us operationally. This has to do with the retirement contribution that's required by city employees and as the city as the employer. Over the next biennium, the required contribution will increase by 1%. That's a 0.5% for each year. And that's based on some calculations by the state's actuary to ensure that the retirement account is whole and keeping up with inflation costs. Obviously, we will need to include that into our budget and ensure that we comply with the law and also contribute to the retirement for our employees. Finally, the budget bill is still being worked on. As reported, the first conference committee was not successful in negotiating The second conference committee was appointed yesterday or last night. That conference committee can work in what they determine a free manner, so to speak. And they'll basically take the budget that came in from appropriations and do their best to find a common accord. The informal deadline to get the budget adopted would be this Thursday. So they've got a couple more days. Technically, they could go beyond that, but the governor has to have the opportunity to review the budget and present line item vetoes or changes. And the legislature needs the chance to respond to the governor's comments. So even with those 3 additional days, time is running out. And we, I guess we're hoping that the legislature is able to find some common accord and adopt that budget. If not, it's likely that a special session will be called early summer before the fiscal year ends to ensure that the state has a budget adopted. With that, Your Honor, I'll stand for any questions and appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Thank you for the update on the legislative session as well. Before we get to communication from the floor, I just have a few comments that I'll make. I had the opportunity, along with Councilwoman Borders, to attend the First Friday Lunch and Learn that was held by the Chamber. Very good opportunity to hear a little bit of an update on the hospital. They are hoping to be able to break ground later in the spring. They have had to change a little bit in terms of the plans, in terms of how things would go in terms of design, build, and what model will be used for that. So they've had to change their model a little bit to be able to work with the USDA, who is funding a good amount of that new hospital. It's a lot of work, and they've had to pivot a lot. And I think that was a word that Mr. McGuffey used a couple of times, that they kind of get to a point where they feel like they finally got it figured out, and then they have to. So they've done a lot of pivoting, but they are getting closer to the finish line. They do hope to have the hospital built by 2026. That's the goal. They do hope to have the groundbreaking to be, as I said, this year. It is open for bid right now. So some good news, and I would note that as part of the discussion, one of the questions that was asked was, would this have happened without funding from the city as well as the county, from the half-cent funds? And it was interesting to hear the answer to that from Mr. McGuffey. He said a big thing that was looked at by USDA in terms of whether there was community support for the approval of the loan was that the community was willing to put in close to $1 million early on for the project. And so they considered that quite a bit of, well, I don't know if you'd call it overwhelming, but they considered that to be a very high amount of community support. And so it was interesting to hear that although there's been a lot of discussion about half-cent funds and what they've done or what they haven't done, from Mr. McGuffey, he was saying it made a big difference in the hospital. So something to keep in mind. Also had the opportunity to attend WHAM along with Councilman Peranto, Councilman Larson, Mr. Butterfield, and Mr. Miller. I think that was your first year going. Am I correct, Mr. Miller? It was a good opportunity. I got to meet some people and see some people from my law school class. That was a lot of fun. I actually really enjoyed all the presentations we had. I was the only one of our group that actually talked about Delta 8 and was interested in learning about marijuana and Delta 8 and THC. Everybody else decided to ditch me and do something else. That was okay. I will say that we did have on both houses, so both in the House and the Senate, have passed a law that I think will restrict and change how things are done in regards to Delta 8, Delta 10, other hemp byproducts and or marijuana byproducts. And I would encourage folks to become familiar with that. If it's signed by the governor, that'll be the law. So interested to see where that goes. I had the opportunity to attend with my kids the 4-H carnival. I had never been to anything like that. I really enjoyed it. They sold tickets for, I think, 25 cents each or 20 cents each if you bought 5 tickets for $1. It was a way to raise money for 4-H. It was a lot of fun, a lot of community members there, and I really appreciate the support for 4-H. It's great programs for our children here in the community. Also had the opportunity to attend an Arts in Action open house that we had last weekend. Let's see, not that, yeah, I think it was just Sunday. Arts in Action, you may know, is the ones that put on the Day in the Park. And so they do a lot for our community to try to encourage arts, whether that's music, art, whatever it is, and really appreciate their hard work. And it was really fun to be able to see some dances, have some people sing, dance, play piano. It was a great little opportunity, so. That's basically, oh, well, and I also had the opportunity to attend FCAG. FCAG, as people may know, Fremont County Association of Governments, made up of the mayors in Fremont County as well as a representative from the county commissioners. Actually, from that meeting, had a recommendation for a change to the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, that delineates how the half-cent funds will be distributed. The proposal would increase the amount that would be going towards the airport, increase the amount in terms of the percentage. So it'd still be a half-cent, but the percentage that would go towards the airport would be increased. The percentage that would go towards WRTA, Wind River Transit Authority, the blue bus, would be increased, and then would also have a percentage that would go towards the ambulance. And so it would basically leave us with about 30%, I think. I need to look at the numbers again for what would be given out as grants or whatever through the EDGE funding. Part of the reason for the proposal is that the minimum revenue guarantee as a part of the airport is going to increase. And a part of that increase is we need to be able to have the money to be able to make sure that we have commercial air service in Riverton. So it's something we'll be discussing, I think, at our next regular meeting is when we'll have it. And we'll discuss the possibility of that MOU. And I'll make sure you get it out in plenty of time so you can review it and consider it. And I'd encourage you to speak to constituents about it and see what folks think. And anyone here, feel free to give us feedback on your thoughts about that proposal and what we do going forward in that regard. All right, that's it for my comments. We'll now have communication from the floor. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that's scheduled for a public hearing, you will be given an opportunity to speak during that public hearing. If you'd like to speak about an item that is on the agenda that's not scheduled for a public hearing, just try to catch my eye and feel free to come up to the podium, and we'll give you about 5 minutes if you'd like to speak about that item. If you have something that you'd like to address the council on that's an item that's not currently on the agenda, this would be the time to get up and introduce yourself, please. If you're an individual, I'd ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes. If you're a part of a group, I'd ask you to split it up between the members of your group as 10 minutes. But if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak, I'd ask you to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the council, and all of the esteemed staff of the City of Riverton and the wonderful guests that are here. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Marilyn Midhour. This is Julie Twist. I tend to hog the microphone, so I'm going to bring Julie over here a little bit closer. But we're from the Fremont County Historic Preservation Commission. We are appointed by the Fremont County Commissioners. Julie was our most recent appointment, and I was most recent before that. So now the commission is finally fully staffed, and we are doing community outreach because we want to let everyone know that we're here to help. If there are historic preservation issues, we would love to be involved. I know Mr. Butterfield spoke about Kathy Klein. We would be so very honored to help out. So I'm going to leave this information. Your Honor, you have my contact information. Feel free to share that with anyone who's interested. But we do serve all of Fremont County. So Riverton, Lander, DuBois, Fremont County, yeah, Fremont County from border to border, Jeffrey City. So if there's anything that you know of that we can help with, that's what we're here for.
And I'd like to point out, if you know anybody that would like to give us an oral presentation or talk to us oral history, because, you know, as our people age and pass, you know, we lose a lot of that. And we have such a rich history in Fremont County. So, you know, please don't hesitate to call us. We would love to hear about folks.
I've always said I don't think you can take a step in Fremont County without stepping on history. So kind of keep that in mind, keep us in mind. And as Julie mentioned with oral histories, that's one thing we're going to be starting in the springtime. We work with the State Historic Preservation Office, also the Tribal Historic Preservation Office, and they're going to be lending us the kit so we can do oral histories. And that's going to be starting in the springtime. So anyone who's interested, especially if you know that person who just has a wealth of information between their ears, but they haven't written any of it down, they're the type of person that should have written a book, but they haven't done so, please get in touch with us. We're more than happy to help. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction. And
I promised you we would be brief, and we're going to be the happy people here that don't want your head on a platter. I assured Your Honor of that. We're just happy to be here, so thank you very much.
well, that's all right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Pro.
Hello, Mr. Pro.
I've been here before. We got a lot of issues where I live. It had to take a shooting for the police to get involved, which is pretty sad because it was next to my house, next to my neighbor's house, over the drug dealings that go down over my neighborhood. I'm pretty sure you've had plenty of my texts before. I don't understand why you guys didn't pass the budget to increase pay for the police officers so we can have the money to fund these police officers so they can move and have somebody else so we can take care of our people here. I don't understand that. I understand that you are the mayor, you've promised us a lot of things, and you've fallen short to it. That's one thing. Last year, we were also promised that we were going to have the roads in our community done. That fell through a project with Wyoming YDOT. I want to know where that's going to go through. I know we are the lowest income people that you think of, but I probably made more money last year than you probably did in your whole year because I work hard for my money. I know when drug dealing is going by because, hey, I am a felon. I used to do that, so I know. When ears fall short of things that's going on that can endanger my community, why I'm trying to make it better, makes me feel that you're failing in your job. And that's pretty sad. I thought my problem with the chiefs, but it's actually not. It's with you and the committee holding back. And that's pretty sad. You guys are willing to increase your pay, but you're not willing to increase the pay to protect and serve for our people in the city of Riverton. That's pretty sad. We need to start looking at a better way to start budgeting things that you guys are way out of line. I can get cameras for half the price of that and better for half the prices of what he's talking about, all through the government. I can get better lighting through the government. There's all kinds of stuff that you can get in auctions through the government, auctions through YDOT for vehicles. I don't know why you people are missing the boat, but you are. And you're not helping us. You're ripping us off. You're not making it anything better for the community. You're just spending money foolishly. And that's pretty sad. I'm pretty good to give people an opportunity. One time. I'm going to give you one time, because next time I come in, I'm going to want for your impeachment. If you can't promise what you said you're going to promise when you got hired to do. You know the law, you study the law. You know if a felon's doing something wrong, you don't have to wait for misdemeanors to come and check on him. The guy had no driver's license. He had 6 DWIs, and you still let him drive around. You let everybody drive around in this city, and you don't hand out tickets for a bunch of violations where that money could go to the police department. I want to know why you guys are failing. What? I'm speechless because I don't hear anybody talk or laugh anymore. The next door neighbor has 2 little kids that could have got killed if a stray bullet went by. Luckily, they only had 1 bullet in the gun, the dumb people. But we live right close. My wife has ailing problems. She lives on oxygen. If a bullet went through there, our house would have blown up. What would have happened then? Oh, well, they're low, poor income people. We don't need to worry about them. That's the bad side of town. Well, let me tell you something. This whole place is bad. And the cartel are running through this place like nothing. And you don't do nothing about it. You better sit up and stop going through meetings that you don't need to go and start taking care of this town. Or get out. Let somebody else take your place to do the right thing. You understand?
I hear you. Thank you, Mr. Pro.
Try to get our roads fixed too while you're at it.
Your Honor?
Go ahead, Mr.
I guess there's a couple of facts that you have wrong, okay? One is we did give the police a pretty substantial raise.
Not enough.
Well, it's never enough.
Not enough. When you guys take a lot of that money, I wouldn't be really talking to me about things about raises and stuff. I'd really be looking in my own backyard about the things that are wrong and the EPA can be reported upon. Think about that. I do a lot of more investigating than you people think.
That's fine, but we did give the police department a raise.
Mm-hmm.
And the city council has not had a raise, so we did not increase our pay.
But you monopolize the gas money in this town, right?
Ridiculous.
No, it's not. Trust me, it's not.
Of course it is.
No, it's not. Trust me.
So
Trust me.
what
Let's
does
look
that
at
have
it.
to do with the police department?
One at a time.
Okay.
Okay? I'm just stating the facts that you had wrong.
We do.
I'm
Okay.
not saying.
So if you guys
speak, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay? We did give the police a raise. We did not give the city council a raise.
Mm-hmm.
And we are trying to increase our police force. We're hiring, which is challenging these days, okay? And we are responding to any call that gets put in.
No.
To the best of our ability, okay? And is it enough? Probably not.
Did
But
you
we're
guys
doing our
tell,
best.
excuse me, did you guys tell last week, you put it on Facebook, a lot of these elderly people don't even know how to work Facebook, that the phone lines were down for 3 days? No. You didn't put it on the radio. A lot of these elderly people listen to the radio. That's what they grew up on. They don't watch TV. But you didn't even think about that. That your non-emergency number was down, yours and the sheriff's department in Fremont County. You didn't do that, did you?
That's a good idea, Mr. Pro, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate Mr. Bailey trying to make sure that we have correct information. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, good afternoon, evening,
you.
I guess it is.
You could just make sure everybody who's watching knows your name.
Yep, Karen Johnson.
Thank you.
I wanted to stop in tonight to see if we could do some follow-up. Back in July, we had visited about some of the issues Mr. Pro was concerned about. With the weather turning nicer, we're starting to see an influx again of criminal activity in residential areas, businesses, 3 thefts today just from my store. We have the shooting that was down in All Nations, the gentleman, I guess, that was assaulted and killed over by the church. The criminal activity is getting scary. You know, as a lot of people are aware, the Sheridan officer that was shot and killed, the Thermopolis officer, it can happen in our town too. I'm concerned, and so are a lot of citizens. They're concerned about the status of our city and the status of our police department. I know you guys have put out multiple posts to get applications, and they're far and few between for people that are qualified to be able to do the job. We all know that. They're not easy to get. It's my understanding we lost 2 of the investigators to the county, if I'm correct on that. Just wondering if you guys have had an opportunity since we last spoke to explore other options, maybe contracting with other agencies, getting additional officers here to cover shifts that are already certified, maybe combining with the county. I understand the county's working on skeletal crews as well, so maybe getting with them to make sure that we have adequate coverage of the city. I commend the fact that you guys are trying to get cameras in City Park. It's a step in the right direction, but the goal is to prevent it, not record it. So I'm just wondering, have you guys had any discussion? Have you thought outside the box? Is there any direction that's been discussed to go to remedy some of this and give the citizens of Riverton some peace of mind? There's a lot of drug activity. I get messages all the time. I've forwarded it on. I've given vehicle descriptions, actual house numbers, names, not seeing anything being done. So I'm just wondering where we're at with all this.
Sure. Chief, could you kind of respond a little bit to some of the, I guess specifically you had talked about partnering with the county, being able to, I guess tell a little bit about what we have going on there, if you don't mind, Chief.
Any agency really is what.
Yes.
Sure. As everyone knows, in the last few months, us, Shoshone, Lander, and county, thank you, all the county agencies have teamed up and have signed, and I don't know if it's ever been done, but this MOU that opens the door for us to all work outside and within, not only in Riverton, but in Lander. We started with the DOI task force, but our MOU would allow us to help out Lander to come help us, Shoshone to come help us, us to help Shoshone. So this is new groundwork for us, and all the leaders of the county are looking to see what our options are. So I'm sure this next year we'll see things that we probably haven't seen before here.
So in regards to the DUI saturation patrol, I guess is what you're talking about, that's proven that physical presence of an officer brings down the call volume, correct?
Yes.
So my question is there a way to contract with them to have them here continuously every day, each night, however you need to do it to make sure that there's adequate coverage in the city so that there's a police presence rather than just on Friday and Saturday nights when people are expecting it now? When they see other officers in town, they know you guys are out doing DUI patrol. But I'm talking for crime deterrent in general, all around the board.
I'll tell you that
Because we got to do something.
other agencies that I work for, we have done a similar task force, but not for DUI. It's for the concerns that you have brought forth and everybody that's been the hot topic recently, and that is specifically to address street crimes and to go out and make proactive enforcement in our communities when things come up. So that's not a new concept, but it would be a new concept for here, and nothing's off the table. So
Has any
on
of
the
these
radar.
options been explored? Have you guys had an opportunity to discuss it or anything else outside the box? I guess what I'm asking is the community's curious. I mean, we all know that there's a problem. We all know that there's a shortage of police officers. We all know this. We're just wanting to know what's being done to prevent it. What have you guys explored? Where are we going with this?
We have had deputies that have come and have worked here within city limits. I don't know if we've done that for a couple of months. Since we kind of had the slowdown during the winter, but before we hit that, we had deputies that were coming here and basically, if I remember correctly, we had them coming here and working same as we would have Riverton Police Department officers working. We also have had, and so that is something we've already done. We can start doing that again. We kind of reached this point where winter got people more inside, and so that's not been done for, I think, a couple of months, but has been something we have done. I will say that we also have we've kept our reserve officers busy as we've needed them, and so we've had them coming from the airport, or we had our prior chief who was out a couple of months ago too. So there are things we have done, and we'll continue to keep doing that. I agree with you. We want to make sure that we have a police presence that's going to make a difference.
Is there funding available to bring those officers in
Yes.
to do that?
And we've been doing that as we can.
Okay.
So that's been part of it, and I appreciate it. It's always a good reminder, and it's a good idea. But there's already been some of that we've done, and I'm sure as we get into the warmer weather where we have more activity, we'll continue to do it. So I think it's a good point to be made, and we have done it in the past. We'll continue to look forward to it as we get into the spring.
And then just one final couple things that I wanted to ask. Can we get an update on the police department status of the number of officers that you have, how many applicants you guys have got since we talked about this in July, and how many have actually been hired, along with the statistics of how many, what is the actual call influx going on? I mean, is it more than it was last year? Is it growing weekly? Is it growing daily? Can we get statistics on that?
So we had a report from the police department just a couple of weeks ago.
I watched that, but
Okay.
it didn't provide any statistics. It gave job descriptions of what the employees do.
That's
It didn't really provide anything.
That's a good call. We can definitely try to make sure we have that available.
Okay. At one meeting, the next meeting, it doesn't matter, just at some point so we have an update. I think people need to be aware how short-staffed you guys really are so that people can protect themselves. Because not getting it out there is going to be detrimental eventually.
Well, and I will say, one of the things that we always are trying to work with is, yes, understanding the challenges we have, but also not having it be something where people get, we want to make sure people understand we have a very professional, very able police force. They have assistance as they need it. We have a county that is very good at working together for law enforcement. And we can always do better. I understand that, and I agree with that.
They're excellent at responding. I'm not at all going to deter that, but we absolutely need to improve on preventative. I mean, like I said, the cameras are a great idea, but you're recording you're recording the criminal activity when the goal is actually to prevent it.
Right.
So.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right, if the Administrative Services Director, could you please read the consent agenda items by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, February 20th, 2024, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, February 27th, 2024, council work session. Approval of the minutes, March 5th, 2024, Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations, March 5th, 2024. Replat, Eastern Shoshone Business Park, filing 1, Lot 1. Replat review, West Monroe subdivision.
All right, are there any other items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met before this meeting, and consideration of claims for amount of $174,895.10. Manual checks in the amount of $9,121.63. Payroll and liabilities for February 23rd in the amount of $495,277.23, for a total of $679,293.96.
All right. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilwoman Cox with the second. Any discussion, amendments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, Wind River Visitors Council Joint Powers Agreement. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. You do have Helen Wilson here tonight, who is the director of the Wind River Visitor Council. And as included in your packet, there's a proposal to amend the Joint Powers Agreement. That will need to go to each of the municipalities that are a party to this agreement. And if it's okay with you, I would defer to Ms. Wilson to provide you the background and give you the information related to this proposed amendment.
Hi, my name is Helen Wilson, Wind River Visitors Council. Our joint powers agreement is from 1989, and we have had increasing issues getting our budget passed each year. Our budget approval process is unique to that of the rest of the state, where first off, we go through a budget approval with a budget committee, and then it goes to our board of directors, and our board of directors has representatives from each of the municipalities, and then it goes to Du Bois, Lander, Riverton, Hudson, Shoshone, and the county commissioners. Our current joint powers agreement states that we need unanimous approval for our budget to pass. And we have ran into some problems in the recent years where the budget approval process is taking so long that we're actually losing money. And so, for example, last year, the budget was submitted on April 7th, and we have until the end of June, and the last budget approval came in on June 27th. At that point, we were not able to apply for some state co-op funds, and we were unable to spend the $27,291 of the state co-op funds. An interesting number that I just got last week is the return on investment for those state co-op funds is $260 for every dollar spent. So because of the delayed budget approval, the community and our local businesses lost $7,095,660. What we're asking for is help from each of the municipalities. As I mentioned, our joint powers agreement is from 1989. It needs revisions, and this is a major one. The two revisions that we're really looking at here are getting the budget to be not unanimous, but majority. And then the other is clarifying the budget amendment process. We've had some questions in the past. If there's an amendment that needs making, the Wind River Visitors Council has done that amendment with its board. And we've had people say, well, it should go back to the municipalities. And that isn't stated in our bylaws or our joint powers agreement or anywhere. So what we really want to do is just have full transparency with everybody to really clarify the budget amendment process and then to hopefully switch to a majority approval. The rest of the state, the representatives on the Joint Powers Board actually take the one vote and they don't go and visit the municipalities. We do visit the municipalities, and in a way, I think it's a really positive thing for the municipalities, for the Wind River Visitors Council, and for the community to see and to hear, and for full transparency. But we are asking for everybody's help on the Joint Powers Agreement to try to make this amendment. I think that was really all I had. I did give everybody a letter. Hopefully it was in your packets with the draft second amendment to the Joint Powers Agreement, which has gone through our attorney. I should also mention we've been working with the Fremont County Association of Governments and going to those meetings every month and working with each of the municipalities. We've changed some of the language. We've gotten it as far as we can with Fremont County Association of Governments. And now we're visiting each of the municipalities to see how we can move this forward.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Wilson?
Are we the first visited?
You are the first. We're scheduled in Lander next week, and then we're scheduled in Hudson. We didn't schedule everything all at once because a lot of the meetings are the same nights. So we figured we'll do half, we'll do the other half, and then you'll be seeing me again in the next couple of months with our budget.
Your Honor, question.
Yes, sir.
If you have to have, or if you'd like to move away from unanimous consent between all the municipalities, how then do the other, maybe smaller municipalities have an equal voice?
And that's a great question, and it is a question that came up with Fremont County Association of Governments. We really would like to still communicate with each of the municipalities, and we're not aware of anybody else anywhere that does unanimous approvals. I'm always happy to come and speak at town council meetings and city council meetings and hear people's voices. Another thing to point out is, we have a lot of different communities here. We have Du Bois, Lander, and Riverton who really contribute most of the money to the lodging tax. We have Hudson and Shoshone who don't have the lodging facilities, so they're not contributing to it as much, except with the Airbnbs that are less than 30 days. And then we also have, the Wind River Indian Reservation who doesn't contribute to the lodging tax, but they also are the second biggest thing that people Google before they visit our area, with the first being Yellowstone. So our communities are unique, and we want to hear everybody. We want to work with everybody. I believe we've done a good job with that. We respond to every single phone call, every single email, speak whenever anybody asks us to. And we do want to hear those voices, but we also are concerned that our budget is taking so long to get approved. And if last year, as I said, June 27th, if it would have gotten till the end of June, there would have been no TAD money going to any of the communities. There would have been no grants. There would have been, the communities lose out. And the holdup last year, as I mentioned, over $27,000 in state co-op funds was lost, but that contributes to over $7 million to our local economy, according to the Wyoming Office of Tourism Statistics. So we want to hear people. I don't know if there's an obvious, easy solution. We want to listen. We want to work with people. We've, gone back and forth. We've tried to be very transparent with the Fremont County Association of Governments, hearing concerns, changing language. I didn't even mention what we came up with FCAG for the budget amendments. But sometimes when we're applying for grants, we only have 2 weeks. And if our budget approval process is taking several months, then we won't be able to go and get those amendments made with each of the municipalities. So Fremont County Association of Governments suggested that we get the budget approvals through them, and whether they want to take it back to the city council or the town council, they're welcome to do that. And I'll just read it. FCAG will be given a 2-week period from confirmation of receipt to approve the amended budget. And then if that passes, if 2 weeks pass without communication from FCAG, then the Wind River Visitors Council may move forward with the budget amendment without additional approval. So we're really looking at 2 different things here. We're not trying to not hear voices. We're not trying to not present. What we're trying to do is protect taxpayer money and make sure that we can use it as much as we can. Use every single penny of it to its maximum ability or capacity.
Your Honor, if I can ask another question. Can you explain how you are losing out on those funds? And the reason I'm asking is with a budget going from July to June, if your budget is approved before the end of June, how is that impacting funds?
That's a great question. So the state, we work with several partners throughout the state, and they work with the Wyoming Office of Tourism. And I believe that this was a fall-winter marketing campaign. And we got the email, I want to say in May, maybe, it was early summer, maybe late spring. And we're told, do you want to participate in this? And it's for the following year, and we aren't allowed legally to spend any money until our budget has been approved. So I had the marketing plan ready. I had the email ready to go to the state, ready to spend those co-op funds the second we got that final approval. It came through on June 27th. I emailed the state the morning, 6 in the morning on June 28th, and they said, sorry, they've been gone for 2 weeks because they have a limited amount of actual funds that they can distribute. So that's one of the issues. Tourism asset development money, that's the money that we distribute to the chambers and to some of the towns or the cities. And a lot of people are waiting for our budget to be approved so that they, know that they're going to get money. But we're trying to simplify the process. And the budget approval process has become a several-month process. We used to submit the budget in May. I believe we were required to submit it by May 20th. We tried to get a head start this year by submitting it on April 7th, and it still took even longer to get that final approval.
Can I ask another question without taking
Yes.
up all of our time?
Eventually, Mr. Bailey has a question, though.
So what has changed then in the last couple of years that have caused this cascading effect?
Money. We have increased our lodging tax revenue by well over 30%. We used to have lodging tax revenue of between 500 and 700,000. We're now at over $1 million, which brings attention to our budget, which brings attention to the Wind River Visitors Council. We're involved in more projects, more money is being distributed. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I want to say Riverton received, was it 90,000 something in tourism asset development funds this year. Those numbers used to be a lot smaller. And I heard that in Du Bois, just not even too long ago, it was $5,000, $10,000, and now it's, the same numbers way up there in the 80s or 90,000s. So I would say that the thing that has changed is money, a lot more money. The last 3 years have been record-breaking, and this year, as of right now, this fiscal year, we are higher than any other year ever. So it's going to keep going up, hopefully. I mean, that's what the money is for, is to market our community so more people come. But money is a main reason, I think, for the questions, for the interest, and it's a great thing for our community.
Mr. Bailey.
I guess I have a real problem with the majority as opposed to unanimous, mainly because are you going to go to the city of Shoshone and the town of Hudson and just tell them they don't matter anymore? Because that's really what you're doing. Because Riverton, Lander, and the county, you're going to be the ones that overwhelm what you're going to do. I have a problem with that. I understand your ability, if you have to do a budget amendment, maybe going to FCAG where it's one group, they meet all together. They could go, okay, yes, you can move X dollars from here to another budget item. I think that's a little simpler situation, but.
And I hear what you're saying with that. And what we'll do is we'll do the same thing that we do every year, where we send an email and has the budget, has the information. We'll get scheduled on the city and town councils. We will go and speak to Shoshone and to Hudson. If people want us to come back a second time, we'll come back a second time. I think one time with the county commissioners, we went back 7 times. We're happy to be transparent, to share information, and we're just trying to figure out a way to prevent the very long budget approval process. And I don't know if there's another way. We've talked to our attorney about it. We've looked at all of our bylaws, our joint powers agreement, And we're really trying to do the best thing we can here. When we first approached FCAG, it wasn't for a vote, it was to get their feedback and to ask, how do we move forward with this? How do we support each other so that the communities are benefiting from this money? And this is where we're at now. And I don't know if it means we do more work on this, and then we work with everybody. We've got a lot of different groups to go to, and that's the challenge, is that we could all come up with a draft here, and then we go and visit somebody else next week. So we do need to get this approved through Du Bois, Lander, Riverton, Hudson, and Shoshone, and the county commissioners for it to take place. I don't know if that's possible. I do know that there are other communities in Wyoming who've tried to change their joint powers agreement and haven't been able to. But we have a situation, and we are trying to solve it. And maybe this isn't the best language, maybe this isn't the solution, but we want to come up with a solution.
And I guess, my opinion is, I think we ought to keep that part the same, and maybe you could send the data to us as early as possible so that we have time to give you comments, so that when you do come present, you've already received our comments, and that might shorten the process a little bit.
And that would shorten the process for Riverton. I would agree with that. And what it doesn't do, though, is shorten the process when we have municipalities have us come back for 2 months in a row, because we have to get that final approval. And I don't know if maybe the solution is moving an approval date up. I don't know. And we've looked at this. We've done so much research. I've pulled out the lodging tax manual, pulled out all of our paperwork, and we're just trying to find a solution. Last year I think I visited Riverton twice. That's normal. That's fine. That's great. And as I said, some of the other municipalities, we go back every 2 weeks for 2 months.
And I understand, but that's the world that we live in.
Your Honor.
So,
my concern with that is the municipalities that you're going to over and over are the ones that have the issue with the budget. And if their vote doesn't count because they've been approved by everyone else that thinks it's fine, their vote should count because they have the problem with the budget. So to eliminate their opinion because they didn't agree with you because someone else did, I think that's going to cause more conflict.
And I hear that too. And I think that so this will be my fourth year doing these budget approvals. And from the time that we start doing them, the first city or town council meeting that we go to when they're approved, we've never changed the budget. So the issue comes, why isn't the budget approved sooner? Because if we're not changing anything and if there's no issues with the actual budget itself, then why do we need to keep returning and dragging the process out?
Your Honor, so what are the reasons they have you come back continuously if you're not changing anything? Just an example.
Questions. Last year, I'll give an example with Riverton. The group wanted more time to look it over and to think about it, which makes sense. So then we came back and it was approved the second time. With some of the other municipalities, there was some question last year in Shoshone, for example, there was some question about the budget amendment process, which isn't in the bylaws. It's not written anywhere, but they didn't agree with that we had accepted a $300,000 destination development grant without going and redoing our budget with all of the communities. And that's why we're trying to clear that up too, so that we have one solid thing that everybody is in agreement with. I'm trying to think. The county commissioners last year, we only went to them once, and then got approval maybe a month later with a letter. Hudson, we've actually never gone to Hudson. They just they look at the budget and write us a letter. But I will be presenting this year. Lander, I think, approved it first time last year, but it really depends. And we really are just trying to make this so we can get our budget approved and move on with marketing our community and making sure that we can get as many visitors here as we can for the following fiscal year, which benefits all of our local business owners.
Quick question. Are you limited, sorry, are you limited by, to when you can start the budget process? Can you start that soon?
We are by our joint powers agreement, and what it says is May 10th is when we need to submit the budget. And what we did last year was we actually submitted it April 7th, and what we, in a letter that I wrote, was we're submitting it early to give everybody time to review it. We'd like to get these on the calendar, but please don't schedule it until May. That way everybody has 3 weeks to review it. And it didn't really, honestly, it didn't really make much of a difference. And we can submit it sooner than that. We have a board of directors who have representatives from each community. The budget goes to them the fourth Thursday of this month. I think it's maybe the 25th. Once they've approved it, that's when I'll send it out to everybody else. That's when we'll get it scheduled. And if we could get it approved sooner, I mean, we can use the co-op funds. When I get that email saying, do you want to participate in next year's co-op? We can say yes. We don't have to have a draft email ready to hit send. And that's the concern. And, you know, I could go to every city council meeting all year, and they're interesting. It's great to see people. It's great to tell people what we're doing. But it does cause anxiety not only for the Winter River Visitors Council, but for the people who are anticipating receiving those funds. And we're trying to figure out how to make it better. The system is not great, and as I said, it's from 1989.
So I guess, I suppose my impression of where we've gotten with this discussion has been the biggest delay was concerns about the budget amendment process. And it seems like the easiest way to handle this would actually be able to get direction for the budget amendment process, whether that's FCAG or whether it's the board itself. Am I correct? If I remember right, you had told me that some communities actually have the board itself just approve the budget and it's not approved by the powers of the joint powers, or are all of them that you have to have approval by the joint powers?
All of them, we go to a city or town council meeting, and then we get that approval. So with this group, and I'll just give an example, with this group, you would vote on our budget, and it would get approved or not approved. But even with the Riverton City Council, if one person here didn't vote in favor of it and everybody else did, it would still pass. So I think we're asking for the same thing. And also, you know, we do have representatives on our board from each community, and that's where it stops with the other communities in the state, is it's at that lodging tax board meeting, and the two representatives in Riverton, for example, it's Hal Heron and Julie Buller, they would take the vote, and then the budget's approved. What it does is it makes it so that the Winter River Visitors Council has a closer relationship with all of the municipalities, I think. But we're trying to figure out a way to make it a better system, more efficient, and just a better system for everybody without taking away the transparency or people's opinions.
Mr. Sweeney, did you have something to add? I'm sorry. Feel free to come up to the mic. Certainly. If you could just tell us your name and...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Owen Sweeney. I've been one of the Landers 2 representatives since 2019, and I'm currently serving as the president of the board of the Wind River Visitors Council. So I just wanted to clarify some statements, not correct, but clarify. One of the things that Helen brought up was that the increased amount of money that we've been collecting because of the success of the organization has, of course, increased the level of scrutiny that we received. And we welcome that scrutiny, and we've been very transparent. One of the things that was interesting is that last year's go-around, Helen and I went to all the different municipalities, multiple times, and we were asked repeatedly by all the municipalities to submit the budget information much earlier than we had done in the past. We did that, but it did not speed up the process. So we've been, again, responsive, transparent. Let me also say, in response to a few concerns about leaving Hudson and Shoshone out, I will make this point. Hudson and Shoshone actually do not contribute. They make no contributions to lodging tax. They have the lodging facilities. So it's actually a design of the Visitors Council that we actually give them money that they don't even contribute to. So I think that that's a sign that we want to include, and this has been going on for decades, long before Helen and I even knew what the Wind River Visitors Council was. But with the increased scrutiny and with the increased success, you may have heard the term over-tourism. That's a concern that some municipalities here in the county are concerned about. And so there has been, in contrast to when the original Joint Powers Agreement was drafted in the 1980s, where there was great unanimity about what the Wind River Visitors Council was doing to promote tourism. Now there's increased differences of opinion among the different members of the council at the municipal level about exactly what those funds are being used for, and how they are being used to market, Wind River Country, Fremont County out to the wider world. So the increasing level of scrutiny, the increasing level of disagreement among the Joint Powers Agreement has been showing up in making these budget processes go on for literally half a year. And, we have staff that we're trying to, work and market Fremont County so that people will come and visit and spend their money here, spend their time here. But increasingly, we're dealing with administrative tasks and being called back to multiple city council meetings, which we're welcome to do. But the more we're doing that, the less we're doing to market Fremont County, which is why we're asking for the majority decision versus the unanimity, because we're just trying to make this a more democratic, Republican, small r process where it's a majority vote rather than unanimity, which is becoming more and more difficult.
If I can make a quick comment. I get that, but the reality, though, is that if the other municipalities are part of the joint powers,
right,
the fact that they're a part of that doesn't negate their involvement in the process. That's fact fair. That they don't contribute, they're still a member, so therefore they still need to be respected as part of that process.
Certainly.
Because the councils are representative of the people in those communities.
Mm-hmm.
So they still have to have a voice. So I don't think that we can usurp that offhandedly because they don't contribute to the process.
That's fair, but I would also point out that I don't know very many democratic bodies that require 100% agreement on votes. It's unusual. I'm not saying it's not heard of anywhere, but we're in a position where we have to get 100% unanimity from every single member. And that's becoming increasingly different, again, because of the disagreements.
But you're getting unanimity from the councils, not necessarily all 5 or 7 members of those councils, but the majority of.
That's true.
So it still works and still gives them the voice. I agree with Mr. Bailey and the mayor and Ms. Coxon that we have to look at some other solutions that doesn't usurp the individual communities in that majority.
Your Honor.
Oh. Yes, ma'am.
If I could, there's just a couple of issues that I have with what this gentleman is saying. This is Carla Borders, by the way. First of all, because those particular smaller communities don't have hotels and they don't contribute to the lodging tax, they still contribute to our communities. They still bring schools in. They still use hotels. They are here contributing, and they need to have a say. Whether it's inconvenient is not relevant to me. They have a voice, and they need to be heard, period. That's my first comment. And the other thing is I agree with what Lindsay and Dean have said, and I think maybe we should maybe look into other avenues, but I'm not good with taking away people's voices.
Okay. I will say we've had a lot of discussion without having a vote, which, I mean, you're here, you're able to answer questions and everything. So I guess we're probably at a point where we ought to see where we're at with the vote here, and then we can keep going depending on where we're at. Is that?
Your Honor, could I ask one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
With the intent of being able to quantify what we would make as a motion. And Okay, so regarding the vote by the municipalities and the timing of that, would there be a way to design that, say, okay, we're gonna get the budget to you, I'm just throwing numbers out here, 1st of April? And if we have not received a negative comment or a lack of a vote by, so that your budget's gotta be in by July 1, so say May 1, then that's considered a positive. And give them the opportunity to present that so that they can give you their, input. And if they can't act or don't decide to act by a certain date, which gives you the ability to get your budget in on time, I think that might be a good compromise. And that way they're still getting the ability to approve or disapprove of the budget, but they need a time frame that they can't drag it on to the 11th hour before they give you a decision.
So you're saying that if sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
You're saying that if one of the municipalities doesn't give us an answer, then it's just automatically approved on a certain date?
Yeah, it's considered an approval if they don't vote to disapprove it, I guess, if that's the way you want to put it. But I think build a time frame into that so that we all have to act in a responsible manner. And the sooner you guys get us the data for us to look at, to give us your comments, the sooner you can make a change if that's what's needed. But we aren't going to, wait till the 30th of June to just make our decision. Even though there's times we do make decisions on the last minute, but this wouldn't be one of them.
And Your Honor, I like the idea of FCAG being able to vote on the amendments. I think if you have all the mayors in the room, it's representing all of the communities as well. I think I liked that idea.
Yeah, and if they need a decision fairly quickly, not reasonably expected to be able to go through all 6 town councils and get an approval and all that kind of stuff, I think those kind of things would make sense, so.
And I will say, one thing, I just was doing some quick math because I was curious, and I was like, this could lead to a little bit of an odd result. So we have 7 people here, Riverton City Council, 7 people Lander City Council. We have 5 people for Shoshone, 5 people for Hudson, 5 people for Fremont County, and 5 people for Du Bois. If I'm correct. Not the best at this. If you add all that up, you could have a result where the majority of the councils approve something, but the minority of the people on the councils approve something. In other words, if you have, so that's a total of 34 people, follow me here.
Okay.
34 people at the max, right? 34 people, and of those 34, if you had 4 from Riverton, 4 from Lander, 3 from Du Bois, 3 from Hudson, right? 4 plus 4 plus 3 plus 3. You're blocking 14 people, right?
Okay.
So 14 people out of 34 people could theoretically get this budget passed. A minority of all the people that represent all the communities. That's one of the problems with saying this would have to be moving from unanimous. If all of them that pass it just have a majority vote, and no more than that, you could have a minority of all the representatives actually passing a budget. That's the problem I have with this, is that you're not just saying that Shoshone is written out. You're saying that you could have a minority of all of the people there that could pass it and move forward on it. And that's my concern with it, statistically.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but we're working within the.
I get it.
It's the system.
Oh, I agree.
So.
I agree, but that's my concern. Is
the
that
quirk of it, the system I acknowledge, but
yeah,
we have to go to each individual municipality's council as it's constituted.
Right. That's just the thing that's a little bit weird about it, that I was like, wait a minute, if we had 0, for example, in Shoshone, 0 in Hudson, then we would be having a minority.
You're on.
I'm going to add to that to complicate things.
Good, we need that. It was a weird mathematical.
Well, and here's the other weird part about it is if we were anywhere else in the state, then we would only have the 2 votes from Riverton. So if you add in the 2 people from Riverton and the 2 people from Lander, and the 2 people from Du Bois, and the 1 from Hudson, and the 1 from Shoshone, and the 2 from the county commissioners, those are the votes, those are technically the votes that are representing all of you.
Right.
So it's almost like this is the secondary. So we're going through the process with the people who we are legally supposed to go through it with. And then this is the secondary, almost optional thing, except we've got one sentence in our joint powers agreement that makes it so we need that unanimous approval.
Well, in Riverton on the board is represented by 2 representatives, whereas Shoshone and Hudson have 1.
True.
Right.
But when it comes to being able to vote for approval of the budget, Riverton has 1 vote and Shoshone has 1 vote too.
And
That's an interesting matter too.
And this is also one of the interesting dynamics with the 1989 Joint Powers Agreement. We really are not trying to leave anybody out of this vote. And there's just a lot of moving parts. And in 1989, it was very different than it is now. And really, we should rewrite the whole thing. But, you know, even getting an amendment rewritten is challenging.
Mr. Larson?
Unfortunately, FCAG is not elected.
Right.
The only people that are elected are sitting before you.
Correct.
That's the deal.
I think
We
I understand
can't-
what you're
we
saying.
We cannot acquiesce
That's true.
our votes away.
Correct.
We're still responsible. Unfortunately, that's the way it's been designed. I know it's difficult. And if your pie is continually growing, hypothetically, you're not losing anything. Yes, I know that you could have doubled and tripled and everything else, but obviously, you're very successful because the pie continues to grow. And I know it's difficult, but until the big tent in Cheyenne says you can give away all your responsibility, we can't do it.
Well, actually, if I might respond to that, council member, Mr. Chairman.
Just go ahead, Sweeney.
Actually, that was a recommendation that was made to us, to the Visitors Council by FCAG, and we actually responded to them with your response. We did not want to leave you out
FCAG
of having those decisions because you're elected. And you should all have a say in these things, not just the members of FCAG.
FCAG does not write the rules. The House of Representatives and the Senate writes the rules. That's who we are obligated to.
And may I?
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Wilson.
So I think we're looking at 2 different things here. We're looking for the initial budget, which I think all of us are in agreement that everybody should have a voice. All the communities, all of the city and town council members. We don't currently have a policy for budget amendments, and that's where the FCAG came into play. We currently just approve them like the rest of the state with our board of directors. And so by taking it to FCAG, we're actually adding in an additional level of oversight and more opinions and thoughts. But we currently don't have a policy and we never have gone for the budget amendments.
But
All right.
If I might just make one response to Councilmember Bailey. I think I like your proposed solution, and that's something that I think we could take back, because we can't answer here tonight and say, oh, we all agree. We have to bring it back to the board, but we will do that. I think it's a creative and could be a very helpful solution to the problem.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for asking questions. And I'm not saying we need to vote. What I meant is we need to actually have a motion.
So do we need to give them a motion?
If
our feeling is, or do we?
We can put it on hold.
Do you want to put it on hold?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. We can talk again.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Well, it can not be brought up, but it's on the agenda for action.
We could. Does anybody want to make a motion, or should we just?
Do we make a
I
motion
think-
to table?
No,
We could
Or
table it, I suppose.
I just think it'd be.
Your Honor, there's no motion to table at this time.
Right.
You had it on your agenda, which you've appropriately notified the public about. You've had the discussion. It's really up to you if you want to make a motion, but there's no need to table. You
There's
can
no
have it come
requirement.
back on the agenda.
Motion.
If we had had a motion and a second, we'd have to table it. But because we haven't had a motion. and
So
if
we
we're wanting to-
preceded discussion?
Sometimes we do that, Dean. I don't know what your complaint is.
Point of order.
I have a Robert's Rules of Order book in my office, if you'd like to point out.
Right here.
All right, next item on the agenda. Resolution number 1494, adopting fiscal year 2025 council goals. Administrative Services Director's report, please. Or I guess, is it City Administrator's report? I think I've got a typo here.
I think you do. I apologize.
It's all right.
Your Honor, I think it'd be fun to have Mia give this one.
I was just surprised about that. I wouldn't have minded.
No, if it's okay, I'll do that report briefly. Before you is a resolution that establishes your goals for fiscal year 25. So beginning July of 2024 and ending June of 2025. These goals were prepared following the work session that happened last week, February 27th, and that was moderated by Mr. Gary Michaud. And I think it's appropriate to say we very much appreciate Mr. Michaud's partnership. He moderated your discussion a year ago, and I think he did a successful job doing it last week as well. Through the process of your work session, you discussed really 7 different priorities for the city of Riverton, had discussion on those, and then honed down your specific items you'd like to work on within those priorities. I combined 2 of your priorities into one just because there was so much overlap, so to speak, and that would be the city operations and the budget discussion. What is proposed is obviously able to be amended pursuant to your desire and wishes. So before you is a resolution adopting it. Before adopting the resolution, if you want to amend the proposed outline, please feel free to do so. And again, we appreciate this opportunity to work together because staff really utilizes these goals and your feedback as we get into the budget process, which will be really getting underway right now and run through May. So thank you, Your Honor, and we'd be happy to work on these if you would like, or you can move forward if you like how they're presented.
Okay. Administrative Services Director, Mrs. Harris, if you could please read Resolution 1494 by title only.
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed resolution number 1494, a resolution of the governing body of the City of Riverton establishing goals and objectives for fiscal year 2024 through 2025 to promote the long-term welfare and success of the City of Riverton.
Entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 1494 and establish our goals for the fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilman Peranto. Discussions, amendments.
I like the way you put it together.
You know, I gave Mr. Michaud credit last time because I thought he was the one that basically took it all and put it into something that looked lovely. And I figured out this year that it was actually Mr. Butterfield. I didn't realize that last year. So I agree. Somehow he took a lot of sketched random ideas and put it together in goals that make sense. So I appreciate it. I guess for the viewing public, if you're curious, the 6 areas are communication and transparency. We've got goals regarding keeping our social media and website platforms current with regular and accurate content, maximizing engagement through our new Text My Gov platform, which you're going to be hearing about in coming weeks. Provide information regarding the 1 cent and half cent optional excise tax. Infrastructure and facilities, informing the community of projects completed at the recommendation of Fix Our Roads Citizen Committee. Ascertain priorities, plan for improvements, seek funding opportunities. Community and economic development, collaborate with local and regional stakeholders on a multi-sport facility in Riverton and a shooting sports complex in Fremont County. Support community events and activities throughout the year. Maintain commercial air service at Central Wyoming Regional Airport. City operations and budget. We're talking about a salary study to promote employee retention recruitment. prioritizing cost-effective operations by finding efficiencies, engaging the community by providing information on the budget and operations. Almost done. Beautification and image, promote the use of trails, green spaces, and parks through improvements, address weeds, trash, and other unsightly matters to improve community image. Safety and law enforcement, increase visibility, engage in community policing, continue to support the multi-jurisdictional task force, seek technology and equipment to improve law enforcement operations, and create safe environments throughout the community with additional lighting, surveillance, patrol, and other means. So I think there was a lot of discussion on each of these. I appreciate you separating it out. We had some repetition between some of the goals, and you did very well at avoiding that. I don't feel like we have a lot of repetitiveness with different areas. So, do we want to make any changes, change any of the language, add anything? Do we like having city operations and budget in one? We want to have 8 items, 10 items, 12 items?
I like it.
I think it looks really good.
Councilwoman Borders, Councilwoman Salisbury?
I like them as well.
Yep, I like them. I think they look great.
Looking forward to having them on the podium here next year. All right, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to say that I think hopefully if the people that were before the council earlier, I hope they're still listening so they can see that we are trying to address these issues.
Well, and I think I appreciate that, and I think that's good. I think we just need to make sure we follow up with our good intentions. I think that's what.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
100%.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Public hearing and consideration of resolutions 1495, 1496, 1497, utility rate adjustments. Administrative Services Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. A few years ago, which is now 6 years ago, the city hired an experienced utility consulting firm to analyze the city's current rate structure and associated cost. The analysis determined what rates the city needs to charge to complete needed system development, refurbishment, repair, maintenance, operation, and ongoing sustainability. The professional recommendation of the consultant was to change the rate structure and bring pricing up to a level sufficient to support the current expenses associated with the utility infrastructure. The report recommended annual rate increases to support ongoing and future costs. It should be noted that the funds operate independently of the city's general fund and independent of each other. Unlike a typical business, the funds are not structured to generate a profit, rather to provide essential services to the citizenry while also allowing for future upkeep of repairs and replacements. When planning the fiscal year 2024 budget, the Water Fund operational revenue projections only exceeded expenditures by $48,292. As a reminder, the City Council approved transfers of $344,158 from reserves to offset capital expenses associated with the Water Fund. The staff cut $762,350 in capital projects this year. The current 5-year capital plan includes $10.45 million in infrastructure, repairs, replacement, and equipment purchases. While the staff has sought and secured grant funding to help with some of the costs, a rate increase is necessary to maintain our infrastructure. The wastewater fund operational revenue projections exceeded expenditures by $192,805. However, due to postponed capital needs, the budget was approved with a transfer of $672,000 to complete much-needed improvements, mainly at the wastewater treatment plant. The staff cut $671,850 from last year's preliminary capital plan, and the 5-year capital plan includes $7.4 million in projects over the next 5 years. The sanitation fund budget projections show a difference of $51,842 in expenditures over revenues. Approved transfers from the cash in this fund is $994,742 to cover operational and capital needs. The staff cut $892,000 from last year's preliminary capital plan, and the fund has a projected $2.25 million in capital projects over the next 5 years. If we refer to page 45 of your packet, I have provided to you over the next 3 pages proposed rate changes. The first page is the water fund on page 45, and then 46 goes to sewer and then sanitation. Staff is proposing a 5% increase to our water bills. So what that means for the water fund is they're currently paying, an average household with a 3/4-inch meter is paying $23.05 for the monthly minimum for the service. A proposed 5% rate increase would increase their bill by $1.15 per month for the water fund. It would also increase their gallons, and it's 1,000 gallons of water that they receive each month for $2.91. This proposal would require a 15-cent increase per 1,000 gallons, making the new 1,000-gallon unit charge $3.06 per 1,000 gallons of water. And if you think about the things we pay at the grocery store, $3.99 for a loaf of bread, $3.06 is not a bad price for 1,000 gallons of water. Anything over 6,000 gallons per month, that rate would change from $3.34 to $3.51, meaning it's 17 cents per 1,000 gallons is what the proposed recommended increase would be on the water fund. So overall, in a family that would use 5,000 gallons per month, their water bill would increase by $1.90 per month with a 5% proposed increase. Moving over to the next page, page 46 in your packet, the proposed increase for the sewer fund is 3% this year. And that would make your base rate increase for a single-family 3/4-inch meter 58 cents per month, making a sewer monthly minimum of $19.95. And then there would be an 11-cent per 1,000-gallon increase on the sewer for the usage itself. So the gallon charge for sewer service would move from $3.83 per 1,000 gallons to $3.94. In the sanitation fund, staff is recommending a 2% increase in that fund. And a current residential trash rate is $33.41. With the proposed 2% increase, their new rate would be $34.08. So on page 48 of your packet, I did provide some general scenarios on different types of water or utility bills with different usages. If you have 0 usage, your bill is going to go up $2.40 per month. If you use 2,000 gallons per month with a regular 90-gallon trash container, your bill would go up $2.92 per month. A 4,000-gallon usage, your bill would go up $3.44 per month, and so on. Those are always going to adjust, just dependent upon the household and the amount of water that the family would use. Based on this information, the city staff does recommend a utility fee pricing increase of 5% to the water fund, 3% to the wastewater fund, with plan investment fees rounded to the nearest dollar, and an increase of 2% to the sanitation fund. And this would be effective with the current billing cycle should the council approve this resolution this evening.
Okay, thank you. Administrative Services Director, if you could please read resolutions 1495, 1496, and 1497 by title only.
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed resolution number 1495, a resolution adjusting the amount of user fees for the City of Riverton water system. Proposed resolution number 1496, a resolution adjusting the amount of user fees for the City of Riverton wastewater system. Proposed resolution number 1497, a resolution adjusting rates for the collection and disposal of garbage, rubbish, and debris.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, Councilwoman Cox with the second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare the public hearing is open. Hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statutes, other applicable laws. I'd ask those individuals wishing to address the council, approach the podium, identify yourself for the record. As I indicated before, if you're an individual wishing to speak, please try to limit your comments to about 5 minutes. If you're with a group, please split it up between all members of your group to be 10 minutes.
Sydney Snyder. I'm not good at speaking in the public, so I just want to say we want our town pretty and green. And with this raise in the rates, I think we're going to see more brown. That's all.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Jose Pro, you guys, I'm just about hearing this the first time, but I'm kind of curious. You guys are willing to increase for the sewage, because we don't pay for the water where we're at. We have our own community well, but the fact of the matter is that you guys never even fixed the sewer to begin with, that you guys put so much money in donations. And you still haven't done anything for that either. Haven't done the roads, you haven't done the sewer, and yet you guys are asking for more money? Again, you fail. This committee here has fallen so hard in trying to do what they say they're going to do. And you keep asking us to give you more money? Why don't you try to fix it before we ask for more money? We've talked about this. Me and Colin have talked about this. The sewer problems down there. And you guys hired a local company, Hawthorne, to come in there and do a job that wasn't even done correctly. If you shut off my neighbor's sewer because the other people don't pay for it, you cut off the guy that pays for it. And you ain't done anything about the sewer or the garbage that's left there, put a fine or anything else when we keep telling you that there's problems with the garbage packed there. And I'm pretty sure we got pictures of that too from Riverton newspaper when they were out there, Mr. Kyle and the chief of police went out there to see me the other day, about how the neighbor had just stacked garbage on the property that the city owns now. And then how these people lived there, which were the drug dealers, with no paying, no sewer, and no garbage, and yet we're let to live there. That's a different thing. So again, how do you people have the gall to ask for more money when you ain't even fixed the beginning of the problems that we've already had to begin with before you even became mayor? And I brought it up several times last year, and you guys ain't done nothing. So I think you shouldn't be asking for money until you fix the problem. Think about that. Bailey was here for that meeting. Kyle Field was here. This gentleman was here. A lot of you were here. The only person that wasn't here was the mayor. Don't ask for money if you can't fix the problem that you promised to fix to begin with. That's not fair to us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I would move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All right, Councilman Bailey with the motion, second by Councilman Peranto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare the public hearing closed. I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution 1495, supporting a 5% utility rate increase to the water fund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Bailey, second by Councilwoman Cox. Discussion, amendments, questions?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I think it's important that we discuss the cost of maintaining what we have, and the fact that if we don't have increases, you can't even maintain the stuff that we have in place, much less fix other new problems.
It's been an old problem. Excuse me, but it's been an old problem. And we dealt with it.
Sir, I'm not speaking specifically to you. I think in general, we should have raised our rates a lot more than we have over the years. When we look at a document that shows the history of rate increases in Riverton, it's been really behind the power curve. When you look at the expenses, so a lot of these funds, people think that we have all this money that we have to deal with. And the problem is that certain monies can only be spent in certain ways.
The white people, the rich people.
Mr. Pro, I appreciate that you commented, but it is now Councilman Peranto's turn to speak. Please stop interrupting proceedings.
So typically, people don't understand that certain monies that are generated from within a specific fund can only be used within that fund. So the money that we collect for water, for instance, those funds can only be used for water. We can't use salary money to pay for that, and you can't generate more money without increasing rates. We're a nonprofit. So the city of Riverton doesn't make widgets that we can sell at a profit. So the only way to increase, or the only way to pay for the expenses is to increase the rates for what we're doing. Otherwise, we have to support it with other money called a general fund. The general fund money is money that is allocated differently. And unfortunately, the bucket of general fund money is only so big. This year, we've dipped into general fund to pay other expenses, to support our water treatment plant, our wastewater plant, to fund some salary increases. We've used it and it's gone. So until we can generate more money as a city, something has to give, or you have to increase rates for the things that you do. It's a dichotomy that we struggle with. I'm only speaking for myself, but it's a real struggle. I see the brown lawns in town. I've had people comment to me that this is impactful, and it's really easy to say, well, it's $2, it's $3. Well, it's $2 this year, it's $3 next year, it's $4 the year after that, it's $1 the year after that. It happens, and those increases do add up to people. You know, I see it when I water my lawn in the summertime. I'll have a $200 water trash sewer bill, and that's substantial because it's just my wife and I that live in this house. And I know a lot of people struggle with that. But we're also struggling to buy groceries. We're struggling to put gas in the vehicle. We're struggling in a lot of different ways, but that doesn't negate the fact that we have to maintain the infrastructure that we have, or we put it off. And we put off replacing pumps or taking care of things, and we'll have a whole different conversation with the public when stuff starts flowing the other way. That's a whole different discussion. So it's tough to support it, but the reality is the costs have gone up, and I don't mean to monopolize our time, but it's a very big challenge, and it's hard to do what's right. You know, you don't want to increase taxes for people, but then on the other hand, we have to keep the water flowing and the other stuff flowing as well. Sorry.
Your Honor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Peranto.
Again, we all feel this. And, you know, this 5% water increase, for example, I think it said that it increases $140,000 altogether, everybody all in one big pool, okay? But then Ms. Harris just was telling us that we had to cut back on the amount of construction and capital improvements that we need to make to this water system to the tune of $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. So we're going behind the curve by $600,000 or $700,000 on what we should be spending to keep our water system in order. And it's a very important thing for our lives, all of us, to be able to get water. Now, there's some places that have wells, okay, but there's a cost to maintain those wells too. So if you don't think about putting a little bit of money away when that pump goes out, what are you gonna do? You gotta have money to fix the pump. We gotta have money to keep the water system running, because we don't wanna be a Flint, Michigan, or Rollins had some problems. And so we're doing our best to keep this as reasonable as possible, but yet keep our systems in working order. And that's a challenge. And so there is, you know, even though the city has, you know, big number budget compared to us individually, okay, compared with the things they have to maintain, that money doesn't go as far as everybody would think it would. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Harris, I just wanted to verify, last year we had budgeted, or this year that we're in right now, to have $344,000 that we would take from reserves, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
And then, as it looks now, are we going to have to dip into that?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay, because I know sometimes we budget towards getting in reserves, and this is in water specifically, correct? And that's the one that's the biggest increase right now, proposed. I know sometimes we budget to dip into that, but we don't have to. We're able to be careful enough not to. Can you tell me a little bit about why we have had to this year, if you can, just high level?
Correct. So we have budgeted in the past that we were going to move money from our reserves, and fortunately, historically, we've had enough money in our operational accounts that we haven't physically had to transfer that money. So if we actually look at our last 3 fiscal years, fiscal year 21, we actually operated that we were going to transfer funds, and we ended up $559,000 in the negative. But we had enough money in our operating cash that I did not physically have to transfer the money from our capital reserves into operations. It was absorbed through operations. Fiscal year 22, we were $441,000 in the hole, and we did not have to budget. We didn't have to move the money because I had that in the operational checking account. So we have absorbed a lot of our operational cash covering our capital expenditures, which this year our operational cash levels are down because we have supported our capital projects over the last couple of years, and we will physically have to move that money out of capital this year.
So operational cash might be things like positions that haven't gotten filled or projects that ended up costing less than we had planned, that sort of thing.
I keep money in operational cash to run our daily operations. When we have to run a payroll or when we have to pay any of our regular expenses, that money sits in operational cash. So it is down, and we will need to move the money from capital to pay for this year.
Okay, so this year, despite in years past being able to cover it, we're not going to be able to, and we're going to have to get into reserves.
Yes, that is correct.
And then last year, we had an increase of 5%. Can you tell me at all why we had the plan to be 3% per year? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what's kind of led to having 5% last year and then 5% this year with the water fund in particular?
Of course, it comes back down to our capital projects again. We were able to take the information, and I have a 10-year spread of data that I have taken, and I have been able to calculate what we spend operationally year over year over year, and the trend is very flat. We are not spending a lot of money operationally to keep the water fund going, any of our funds, to be honest, but it's the capital improvements. It's the upkeep on the system that we're having to pay for. Historically, we've had grants and loans and different things like that, so we've been able to help pay for some of those in that way, and we're going to continue to seek grants and loans. Mr. Eggleston got a huge ARPA grant for our meter infrastructure project this year. We will continue to seek grants, but we don't have those lined out for future use at this point, but that's the only way we're going to be able to keep the infrastructure healthy.
And I know we had talked a little bit about this, I think, at WHAM, but if we want to receive grants, I guess which grants require that we have regular utility rate increases?
All of them.
So if we're wanting to get grants to support it, it's kind of, I guess, a little damned if you do, damned if you don't. Okay. Mr. Larson?
Your Honor, we were told by the Appropriations Committee, the one that raised it from 105 million to 146, that if we had the power and would not, they would not. Meaning they would not appropriate money to save us from our inability or unwillingness to help ourselves. Now, there's been some small things omitted, but lift pumps cost money. And as far as I know, I don't live in an area that has a lift pump. Some people do, but they cost money. And when they are not replaced, then sewers don't flow. When pipes break on Maple and Aspen, they cost money to fix. And at Christmas time, Kyle had all kinds of people out there fixing those pipes. That cost money. And as far as I know, if we don't raise money to have in reserve to fix those pipes, those homeowners, instead of saying, they're gonna say, what's this water running down the road for? How is it getting into my basement, etc.? Historically, we need to maintain our facility. That's why you said about judges. We have a certain ability, and we're a city, and we're the responsible parties. If you live out in the county and you have your own well, and the well goes dry, you don't call the city to deliver the water. You have to take out $25,000 to drill a new well. And consequently, you need to raise and have sufficient for your needs. It's just part of it. How much money did we make last year on this water fund?
What do you mean by make?
Not spend.
We call them enterprise.
I see what
We
you're
call them
saying.
enterprise funds.
But you're saying how much did we have left at the end of the year?
No, how much money did we make?
Okay.
Let's be honest. We're supposed to make a profit so we can replace things. I know, we disguise it as something else. We call it enterprise funds. But we spent how much money and how much did we lose?
Your Honor,
Go ahead, Ms.
last year, fiscal year '23, we brought in $2,923,748 in the water fund. We spent $2,927,920. We were $4,172 in the deficit.
It means we lost money. So if you're a store owner, you're selling bottled water, you're making money. But the city of Riverton doesn't make money, but we still have to replace the pipes. The pipe coming from Hilltop through that little process was $1.25 million. Why was it so expensive? Because it was. So when people throw out, we're not doing our job, they're not really understanding what our job is. If your water is turned on and it's working, we're doing our job. If your toilet flushes, we're doing our job. If you can drive on the road, we're doing our job. Thank you.
I guess the other thing that I wanted to ask Ms. Harris, I had someone bring up, and it was a unique question, that because of the 1 cent and doing infrastructure changes, especially below roads in particular, that would be supplementing water, wastewater, that kind of thing. To what extent does that occur to where that's being paid for by the Fix Our Roads funds? Or Mr. Butterfield or Mr. Eggleston?
If I may defer that to them, they're the experts in the 1% construction projects.
Your Honor, I'd be happy to answer that question. We can provide more detailed information specific to the question that you received from the resident. We do our very best to ensure that when the Fix Our Roads Citizen Committee is looking at a surface, that they're also considering the subsurface. It is a terrible waste of money to put $500,000 to $1 million into asphalt, but then have a water break and you have to dig it up within 3 years. That's a bad investment of money. So through the life of the 1% that we've had, we've been able to take care of some of our water lines and some of our sewer lines. We've also had instances where there's been a partnership, so to speak, between the 1% and the enterprise funds. An example in that is the Bell Street improvement that happened, I would say, please forgive me, I'm estimating about 4 years ago, where we utilized funds in the wastewater enterprise account to take care of the sewer lines, but then we utilized the 1% to do the surface. That hasn't always been the case, specifically in the water fund, because there is a challenge in funding all of the outstanding needs in the system. So when Hill Street was done, the 1% project, the 1% account, helped improve the water and sewer lines. Similarly, when Davis and Gale were done, or when Fremont was done. So these projects that have been worked on through the last few years have been completed. We have looked at those specific water or sewer lines underneath that road. But keep in mind, there's over 70 miles of water main within the city of Riverton. And when we do a street that's maybe a quarter-mile long, that's an important improvement, but it's a drop in the bucket to the entire system. I hope I answered your question sufficiently. We can look into the specifics of each of the projects and what was spent on water versus the road. But thank goodness we have the 1% fund. And per the ballot language, it does say for water, sewer, and road improvements.
When we've done it, we're not just general water sewer improvements. It's something that we will have that supplement when we're doing work under a road or near a road.
Your Honor, when the enterprise fund is healthy and can provide that partnership, we absolutely do. But in recent years, it was not possible to take care of the entirety of the water needs as far as a capital outlay and pay for the water improvements as part of the road projects. So the 1% fund has paid for some of the water improvements, specifically on like Hill Street and those others that I mentioned.
Okay, I appreciate it. Mr. Bailey?
And if we did not have the 1% fix our roads money, when we had a water break or a sewer main that we had to replace, then the water and sewer funds would have to pay to repave the street when they're done digging on it. So I think the city's getting and the citizens are getting a really good bang for their dollar because we have that fund to be able to help us stretch those water and sewer fund dollars a little better with the 1% Fix Our Road Committee money, so.
Your Honor, if it's okay, I would like to just agree with that statement that the investment that's being made by the 1% is really valuable to the residents, especially in the areas where the improvements are being made. And Councilman Bailey's point and Councilman Larson's point, when we had a significant water break over the holidays on Cooper with the transmission line, we had to mobilize and utilize funds to repair that line, which were not budgeted. It was an unanticipated impact on our system, and we're still working on that repair. Mr. Eggleston's working very hard, and that unanticipated break and unanticipated cost will exceed $100,000 of unbudgeted funds. And so there's another reason why we've had to pull into our capital reserve to make sure that the system is operating the way it should. And I take a lot of pride in our water system. We have great operators. We have great people that ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens are protected.
Your Honor, so the increase that we're asking to put through tonight just barely would pay for this one incident that we had that was unexpected.
Oh, you mean
So
with the
that-
140,000?
Right. So the 140,000 is just barely gonna pay for that one unexpected break that we didn't have in our budget.
Yeah, but
Compared to the $900,000 worth of projects that we ended up not doing because we knew we didn't have the money.
that 140,000 is in the future.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying.
Cost is present value.
I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but that shows you how far that 140,000 can go.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one major line break, and they're gonna spend that kind of money, so.
Of all of our enterprise funds, safe to say that the one that's got the biggest deficit would be then water.
The water fund.
Okay.
Yes.
And last year, we were barely able to get by with 48,000. Okay.
So, call for the question, Your Honor.
Okay. All in favor of the resolution supporting a 5% utility rate increase to the water fund, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Move on to the resolution number 1496, supporting a 3% utility rate increase to the wastewater fund. I have a motion in that regard.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion. Second by Councilman Larson. Any discussion? Questions?
Call for the question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Chair would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 1497, supporting a 2% utility rate increase to the sanitation fund.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox with the motion, second by Councilman Larson. Discussion, amendments?
I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe Mr. Larson can answer that. What was the increase to the city in terms of disposal for this year?
There hasn't been an increase to the city in the last 10 years for solid waste. It's $80 a ton.
No, I think the question is, what's been the increase in terms of how much has been thrown out? How much has been discarded? It seemed like you were indicating that there had actually been a decrease.
Right.
Oh, you mean, what is it costing the city to send money to the county for the waste disposal?
That's correct.
It used to run about $85,000 a month. We are currently about $45,000 to $50,000 a month. That's been for the last 2 years.
And that was correlative to the economy and the economic
Yep.
downturn.
And they dispute that. They say it's the other way around. And I just say, take a survey and see what your free airspace, that's what they count. That's the amount that's here to the top when it's full, which is this year. Well, legislatively, we're supposed to be closing Lander and be hauling to Sandral. Well, we're not, because we're not filling it up, except we're trying to help it with a high school. But it's around about $48,000 to $53,000 a month. Plus, there's a 3% mill that goes to solid waste. So you're taxed as a property owner, and you're taxed by the city to pick it up.
I guess that, getting to Mr. Peranto's point, I suppose in terms of the health, so to speak, of the sanitation fund, how does it compare to water?
Next question, thank you.
Yeah, that's...
The sanitation fund is relatively healthy, and the reason for that is that we don't have quite the volume of capital projects in the sanitation fund. A lot of our purchases are replacement of equipment, sanitation trucks, hook trucks, rollout containers. We did have a landfill study that was slated, and I think that's been pushed back a little bit. But the sanitation fund is in pretty decent shape right now.
The landfill study in terms of phytoremediation?
That's correct, Your Honor.
That's the...
I just wanted to throw that word out there because it's a fun one to say.
Your Honor, if I may, I have the annual fees that we pay for landfill charges starting from fiscal year 1920. $564,000, $610,000, $620,000, and $576,000 is what we had, and then we budgeted $625,000 for this year.
And how are we looking for that?
Landfill charges right now. Oh, wrong one. Let me look. I apologize. I can pull up all the reports in the world, and you're going to ask me the one question that I don't have in front of me.
While she's doing that, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
City of New York, they have a driver and 3 people and a pickup truck following each one of the garbage trucks. In the city of Riverton, they have 1 driver picking up garbage. City of New York, they have 1 driver, 1 following in a pickup truck, and 2 men throwing garbage. So they use 5 people. We use 1.
2 vehicles.
And 2 vehicles.
Yeah.
Then our vehicles cost roughly about $400,000, $383 whatever. And they last about how long? 4 to 5 years. So we are doing everything we can to collect garbage, solid waste, as cheaply as we possibly can.
Well, and I'm just wondering if there has been less expense, and I know, in terms of the rate study, and I think I'm reading Councilman Paranto's mind a little bit here, so tell me if I'm wrong. But if there's been less expense associated with it, and we're going over the rate study for water, do we have enough room to go under the rate study for sanitation, or is that feasible or responsible? Am I getting to the
Exactly,
same point?
because the funds are not interchangeable. You can't commingle those. So, and they're also at a lower cost. So where you're increasing our water rate at 5%, decreasing or not increasing our waste percentage doesn't really offset.
Right.
Right? So it's not, the math doesn't work that way. But I was curious what the differential was if we didn't raise the waste fund and what that would do to us.
You're talking sanitation, not waste.
Sanitation.
Because we already voted on.
Sanitation.
Yeah, Your Honor. I guess from the numbers I see here, the increase to the sanitation fund would generate $47,000. Okay? Which is, 20% of a garbage truck?
Yeah.
Maybe, not quite. And I think, yes, we're probably generating less waste that we have to pay for at the landfill, but I think the cost increases are in the equipment and in the labor and the, all the things that go along with collecting the trash. It's sort of like, when you buy a bottle of water, okay, the cost is not the water. The cost is the bottle and the shipping and the labeling and all the things that go with it. The actual water or soda or whatever is not where the huge amount of the cost is. It's the delivery of the product that is the.
And that's one of the points I was making too. I mean, looking at just kind of an average household with 2,000 gallons, the garbage is due to increase 67 cents versus 80 cents for sewer and $1.45 for water. So it's not it's not a lot, but you're right. I mean, we still have garbage trucks to pay for and other equipment. So I was just curious if there's, how that fund was looking and if we needed to make that increase.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
If I may, and I would definitely defer to Mia to help or Ms. Harris to help answer this, but I think the point about the tonnage that's collected and that goes over the scale is an important thing to talk about. But that's only one component of the entire sanitation fund. Outside of our overhead costs, which include personnel, we do need to look at our capital outlay. And as Councilman Bailey alluded to, the cost that it takes to reinvest in our sanitation trucks. As of right now, there's an operating reserve in the sanitation fund that's about $500,000. So that's a good, healthy amount. That's why we say it's healthy until you spend $350,000 of that on a sanitation truck, and then another $200,000 on a potential hook truck, or replacing the bins. And I'm just kind of speaking offhand. I'll look at the 5-year plan, but the other item that we are not healthy enough to fully address at this point is the landfill remediation. This has been a long-standing issue, and fortunately, we've been able to work with the DEQ and with our consultant, Imberg Miller, to look at alternative solutions. But if it so happens, in a worst-case scenario, that we have to remediate the landfill that's just east of Smith Road, we could be looking at potential costs of remediation, not of $1 million, but $10 million. So this $500,000 that we do have right now, and there may be, and again, I'll run over numbers, it looks like we're healthy, but we have to plan for those potential costs. Now, I don't think we're in a situation we'll have to do that full remediation because of the partnerships we have with Imberg Miller and the DEQ. But the FIDO remediation costs will still be there, and that could range anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000, depending on implementation. So I just want to make sure we come back to not just the operating costs and the costs of the $80 a ton, but our capital outlay to ensure that we have the trucks that are running and operating to maintain. The other item that we need to keep in mind is if the solid waste disposal district changes their operating plan and requires us to haul directly to sand draw, that's an added impact on our sanitation trucks. Potentially, it could be an impact on our operations, as we've talked in a few of our work sessions, where unless the district opens back on Monday and allows us to drop off sanitation or solid waste that's collected on Mondays, we have to absorb our current operations and the added drive time. And we might be able to do it, but we might not. And so then we're looking at added employees, added routes, added impact on our trucks. And these are things that Mr. Eggleston is still going to need to look at, but I'm just kind of throwing out the future of what's related to the sanitation fund, some of the things we can control and some of the things that we can't control.
And I guess in terms of phytoremediation and landfill mitigation, if we were wanting to get assistance from the state, whether it's a loan or something like that, if we get stuck with a $10 million bill, are we going to be shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't increase the rates for the land, for the sanitation fund?
We would, Your Honor. Obviously, the phytoremediation program is somewhat supported at DEQ. There's a couple scientists that are not fully committed to it yet, and that's where a lot of the hurry up and wait has been. We've been hesitant to jump in for the actual remediation program with the state, because once you're in, you're committed. And the funds we're putting towards it now will help with our match if and when that comes. But I mean, we have to have the available cash to keep that project going.
Okay. Well, I just thought it was worth the discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate the higher level discussion as well, and you articulating that, because it's pretty easy to just kind of get focused on numbers without looking at the broader picture. So I appreciate the discussion.
Mr. Bailey?
I guess I don't think we should understate the change in the cost when we start having to haul trash to Sandra. It's going to be huge. All right, how many loads a week do we put in now? I don't know if you have that number right off the top of your mind, but.
Yeah. More than 12?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I should let Mr. Eggleston speak. He understands our sanitation operations very well. But typically, just on our residential side, it requires 2 drops a day. So we have to go to Smith Road, drop, and then pick back up on our route. So, multiply that by 2 residential routes going a day, then you add in our commercial, and if you just think each of those trucks are dropping at least twice every day.
Right, so you're talking 8 or 10 loads a day, right? Okay, times 25 more miles a day that we have to drive out to the Sandra landfill. That's 200 plus more miles. The cost in man hours and truck expense alone is going to be
in wear and tear.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Wear and tear on very expensive vehicles.
Yeah. So, but we're beating this dead horse.
Yeah, I agree.
Badly, I think, but.
Well, you're the one who had to chime in.
We'll call for the question, Your Honor.
All right. All in favor of the motion to approve Resolution 1497, supporting a 2% utility increase to the sanitation fund, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Bid award, North Major and College View Improvement Project. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is part of our Fix Our Road Citizens Committee, our 1%. As part of their prioritizing projects for the fiscal year 25, they identified North Major and College View Drive for projects this year. The total project is going to reclaim 10,650 square yards of roadway plus 2,460 square yards of full depth reclamation. We'll be installing some geofabric to stabilize the area. and then going back with 13,110 square yards of asphalt for the project. We received one bid. That bid from 71 Construction came in at $599,594. It was responsive, and we'd recommend approval of that.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to award the bid for the Major Avenue and College View Drive project in the amount of $599,594 to 71 Construction of Riverton, Wyoming.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson with the motion, Councilwoman Cox with the second. Discussion?
Wow, that's a lot of money.
I agree. 10,000 square yards of roadway about.
It's a little bit more than that. We have some full-depth reclamation that we need to do. Actually completely remove the road and the road bed underneath it and stabilize it. But
There'd been some discussion, I think, regarding, is it on the list of priorities at all for Flag Drive, Freedom Drive? Is that on the list of projects this year?
no, they're not, Your Honor. We looked at that and evaluated that project. That project's going to require a complete water and sewer replacement as well. And we didn't want to dive into that project right now, or the Forest Committee didn't.
Is that, okay, so that's this calendar year. I guess that'd be something for next year then to consider.
It's on their radar, definitely.
It's fairly high on the priority list that they've rated these projects, and
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's up there pretty high on that list.
I would say conservatively, it's probably 2 years out.
Okay.
We gotta fix some drainage in that area as well, and the water and sewer all need to be replaced, so.
I just remember discussing in terms of projects that have been discussed since I was on the council. Davis, Gannett, Flag. I mean, that's been the ones that have been kind of long-term trying to figure it out. Airport Road, of course, has been talked about forever, I feel like.
Sunset Street got done both in the sort of the center section of Sunset and the east section had been totally rebuilt. And they've got another section to go, so.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that. Any other discussion? Councilwoman Salisbury, Councilwoman Borders, any discussion, amendments, questions, comments?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Urban and Community Forestry Program Grant. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor and Council. Staff was approached by the tree board. They'd like to submit a grant to the Wyoming Department of Forestry for their Urban and Community Forestry Grant Program. This program's funded through the United States Department of Agriculture and the Forest Service through the Inflation Reduction Act. They've identified the canopy in several areas around the city and want to do basically a tree inventory. The last tree inventory that was completed in Riverton was in 2014, and to my understanding, it wasn't a complete inventory, it was a partial inventory. They're wanting to apply for a grant in the amount of $78,000. There is no matching component to this grant. However, with staff and services, that we would provide roughly $22,000 in in-kind match with city employees, volunteers, city equipment. It seems like a great opportunity, and I think it'd be beneficial and help support our tree board.
All right. Chair would entertain a motion to support the grant application through the Wyoming Department of Forestry, Urban and Community Forestry Grant Program through the Inflation Reduction Act.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey with the motion, Councilwoman Cox with the second. Discussion, amendments, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, well, do we have a need for an executive session?
No, Your Honor.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Larson, second by Councilman Peranto. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We stand adjourned at 9:35 PM. Thank you, everyone.